It's time to talk with Jay Foss.
Thanks so much for calling in. I really appreciate you.
You're welcome. I appreciate you too, Jay Foss.
The magic happens when you have the right person in the right place at the right time.
If we're having fun, everyone else is going to have fun naturally.
Keep it local radio.
I'm obsessed with transformations on this show. And so I guess that in this case, you are that paradigm shift. You are the thing that transforms people. That's what people call me.
Want to connect with Jay? Dial in.
But then the question is everyone tuned into the right frequency?
Are you tuned in?
Making our corner of the world a little brighter.
Did you make the right decision here? Like, did you bite off more than you can chew?
In figuring out what makes people tick whenever we start something new.
Yeah.
There's always that question of
raising your inner voice.
Wait, was this too much? Did I start hiking a mountain that's a little too high for my level of experience?
With Jay Foss.
It's a quote by Thoreau. The price of anything is the amount of life you exchange for it.
Not just another talk show.
We cover all things that make us human.
It's time to be heard.
How can my values and how can these inner thoughts that I have help me be a more whole human being?
Online and on air.
We can't legislate being a good, decent human being. So what can we do? We can become more active in this community.
Raising your inner voice with Jay Foss.
And hey, party people, this is Raising Your Inner Voice, which makes me Jay Foss, and I'm so grateful that you are here joining us this evening. We delve into various topics on this talk show, and really the whole point of this show for me is about listening to each other and listening to ourselves better so that we can be better people. And we cover a variety of different topics. And you are always welcome to join the conversation. The way that you can join the conversation is by calling 617-843-5393, or you can also go ahead and tippity tap on the clickety clack, which means typing on the keyboard. You can join the conversation simply by commenting on the video. What is the conversation this evening, you might be wondering? Well, let me tell you, we're talking about pet loss. And I happen to have an amazing guest with me, Niki Vettel, who's a certified grief educator and companion animal doula. Niki, thank you so much for joining Raising Your Inner Voice. And let's jump right into this about pet loss. I mean, it's kind of a weighty, heavy topic.
It is. And thank you, Jay, for having me. I mean, we've talked about chatting together for a couple of years now, so I'm really happy to be here. Yeah, pet loss is, for any pet owners who are listening right now, that if you have experienced the death of a pet, it's devastating. It's really devastating. And up until pretty recently, the death of a pet was not given the same weight by society at large as the death of a person in your family.
Right.
But pet parents know that the death of a pet is the death of a family member.
Yeah.
So pet loss was called disenfranchised grief, which actually means grief that is not validated.
Yeah.
All right.
That makes total sense.
Yeah. So, for example, you are a pet owner and you have just experienced the heartbreak of losing your dog, and you're really sad. And there are people out there who will say, well, I'm so sorry, Jay. Well, just get another dog.
Yeah.
Right?
Yep.
And you want to say to them, it doesn't work that way.
Right. Yeah, it's not replaceable.
It doesn't work that way.
Yeah.
Or, after a couple of months and you're still sad about your dog, and someone might say, you're still like sad over your dog, like get over it. It was only a dog,
right,
which is something that people will say who aren't pet owners, or, a goldfish. Goldfish live a long time. I've just been learning about this.
Oh, yeah?
They do. They can live a really long time. And somebody might have a pet goldfish that's been 7, 8 years old or something, and that goldfish dies, and that's a loss.
Yeah.
They have a relationship with their goldfish, and somebody's going to go like, "Oh man, really? I mean, flush him down the toilet and get on with your life." And it doesn't take into consideration the relationship that we have with our pets.
Yeah. And I've noticed, sorry to cut you off.
Sure.
I've noticed a lot of the comments are belittling comments
Yes.
that you're giving for examples
Yes.
of what people respond with.
Yeah. Yeah. If they haven't had a pet, they tend to downplay. They're going to downplay it. And usually people who have pets have more compassion, actually, because they've gone through it. But this idea of, so you should go to the MSPCA right away and just get another kitten or get another puppy or get another rabbit or get another guinea pig, in my case, because I've had guinea pigs. And for some people, I will say this, because you can't say one size does not fit all. For some people, they will get another pet very quickly. They will want to have that animal energy in their house.
Yep.
And they may feel very, very lonely without. So I hesitate to say, oh, you should never run out and get another pet right away. But most people won't do that because they are grieving.
Yeah. There's a loss.
There's grief. It's grief. It's grieving the loss of a soul that you felt very connected to. So now there has been a huge number of, if you go online and you type in pet loss support, you're going to a million things are going to hit you. So there are a lot of online support groups now.
Okay.
For people who are going through pet loss. And there are also now programs that train people to be able to facilitate a group of people who are getting together to grieve a pet. There are therapists, and I mean, I've been studying this for quite a while. So there is there's a field called animal assisted therapy, animal assisted interventions, and people. So I do animal assisted therapy, and so it makes people smile. My therapy partners have always been guinea pigs. You're laughing.
Yeah.
You just haven't met Hermie, because if you met Hermie, you would see he's an excellent, excellent therapist. So there is now, I guess, to take a step back, this recognition and serious study of the human-animal bond. And there's actually a field called anthrozoology that is now an academic discipline to study the human-animal bond.
Wow.
Yeah, and there's been lots of fantastic research that's been done on this by very, very smart and wise researchers it's all disciplines.
Okay.
It's all disciplines. There are anthropologists and sociologists and zoologists and psychologists and early educators. And because there's now, yes, it's okay now to study why you love your dog so much and why your dog loves you so much. Okay. This is now a real area of research. And actually, at Boston College, there is the canine cognition lab, and you can bring your dog there. I think you probably have to call them first, but they are really interested in meeting all kinds of dogs, and you bring your dog in, and they have these play tests with dogs.
Okay.
So, for example, I have a friend who had 2 golden retrievers. I don't know if they were both rescues. One of them was a rescue from Turkey, and she was a visiting therapy dog.
Mm.
And her sibling, her adopted sibling, was didn't really do that, wasn't really into that kind of thing. So my friend brings both of her dogs to the canine cognition lab, and they do a variety of little tests, but they're like play. So they're going to do tug of war. And they give the dogs a choice about what they want to do.
Okay.
And when they gave her two dogs a choice, her non-visiting therapy animal was all about, I want to play, I want to tug, I want to do. And the dog who is the visiting therapy animal was completely uninterested in that and just
Yeah.
wanted to go and sit next to somebody. And that's what makes her a really good therapy dog.
Yeah, that makes
because
sense.
She's very into being around people. And so there's lots of places are now studying canine cognition. They're studying feline cognition, which is, I have a cat. I would love to have somebody tell me why she thinks the way she does, and all kinds of interesting stuff like that. So, we're in a kind of a golden age, really, of celebrating the human animal bond.
Yeah.
And along with that, then comes the recognition that when that bond is broken, it's a serious consideration.
Right.
So that's
Yeah.
kind of where we're at.
That's so many things I'd like to jump off on. First
Sure.
of which being, you mentioned the soul of the animal. A couple weeks ago, we were actually talking on the show about people having wild animal souls,
Oh,
right?
like
So
their
your soul,
their
like a spirit
their
animal.
spirit
Exactly.
animal. Yep, their spirit
So
animal.
tell me more about the soul of an animal, of an actual animal.
Yeah, well, you know,
Does it matter the animal?
I don't think so.
Yeah.
I mean, but and I know that people have gone to various religious leaders and teachers and thinkers to ask them if they believe that animals have souls and do animals go to heaven.
Yeah.
And that's kind of a big question for a lot of people who have that kind of
If you
faith.
have that answer, give us a call, 617-843-5393. Because I mean, that's such huge questions that
Yeah.
also I feel like come from the most innocent places. Kids are asking these
Of
questions
course
by and
they
large.
are. Of course they are. And when we talk a little bit more about what a doula does, sort of sitting with kids and helping kids get through the loss of an animal is important because it's usually the first death that a child will have an experience with is the
Yeah.
loss of a pet.
Right.
And so how that goes for the family and the child can have some very deep ramifications for how they are going to see death in the future
And deal with it probably the rest of their
and
lives.
deal with it. Yeah. I mean, I think, I've asked people, do you remember your first pet that died? Everybody does.
Yeah.
Everybody does. I mean, I remember personally, I was can't remember how young I was. We had this cat and his name was Figaro and I loved the cat so much. And we brought him to the vet and the vet had to euthanize him.
Mm.
And all I remember was running out of the vet's office, wailing at the top of my lungs.
Yeah.
Not what any vet really wants, some child screaming in agony to run through their waiting room. But, people just remember because it's a foundational memory for a lot of people. So how parents model their own grief is the way a child kind of learns it's okay to cry. Hopefully a parent will say it's okay to cry.
Yeah.
Because you miss, Fluffy or whoever. And one of the things that is important, and this seems like a little thing, but it's not a great idea to tell kids, oh, we put Fluffy to sleep because a child will think, well, if I go to sleep, does that mean I'm not going to wake up?
Yeah.
So there's a really nice phrase, I think, that has come out of the home euthanasia movement, and that's putting an animal to peace.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Nicer, right?
Yeah, it's a much better spin on it.
Yeah.
Um,
We put him to peace so he
yeah.
wouldn't be sick anymore.
Well, because ultimately that is what that
That's
is what's
exactly
happening, right?
So, I mean, for a little kid, and kids, kids handle grief according to their age. I
Yeah.
mean, we know this. Little kids will be sad 1 minute and then they'll be playing the next. I
Yep.
mean, it's kind of that's how they process it. And then slightly older kids are sort of wrapping their head around, you mean he's never coming back?
Right.
Or my cat's never coming back? That's a big that's a big piece to try to understand.
Yeah.
And then as kids get older, they understand death more, but how the parents act around that death sends so much. You're educating your child around how to handle death.
Right.
And as a culture, we don't do that very well. We're like a big death denial culture, right?
Yeah.
We don't want to talk about death. We don't want to, we'll say, like, if the person dies,
It's not an if.
It's not an if. And there is
Why do you think we do that?
I think, I don't know. This is just me,
Yeah.
because I think that our American culture was we like this thought that we're going to live like forever. I mean, there are songs about it, right? And I just think that we're so uncomfortable around death. We're so afraid we're going to say the wrong thing. That's a lot of it. I don't know what to say.
Yeah.
When somebody has had a death in their family. And it reminds people of their own mortality. But I'm going to say, and I'm being a little flippant here, but grief is like trending right now. So people are really talking about grief. There is the death positivity movement, which is really trying to explain that death is a part of life and it's not to be feared, and you can have a good death, which is, we'll talk about that with animals too, because that's a lot of what we try to do, because obviously, unless you live in a state where you can have an assisted death, veterinarians are pretty much the only doctors who have to put their patients to death.
Right.
And
I'm sure that's a hot topic.
It's, I'll say this because we're all over the place, but so a lot of people will say, I want my animal to have a natural death. A natural death is not a good death.
Yeah.
A natural death happens outside. It can mean the animal is lonely. It can mean they're cold. It can mean that they're at the mercy of predators.
That's what I was thinking. That my first thought went to predators. Yeah.
That's a natural death. So what we try in the, and I'll explain a little more about what a doula does. We want to help the pet owner give their pet a good death. And that means, it usually means a euthanasia, but in a way that's understanding and loving for the animal. There's now animal hospice, which is, it's not a place, but let's say cats they have kidney failure.
Okay.
That's a thing with cats. And so, and I'm going to use the term, it's so nice. It's a Hawaiian word, kahu. a pet kahu. Kahu means you're a guardian.
Ah.
You are in the service of someone. Kahu is someone who looks after and is honored by doing that. So we'll say you're the pet kahu, and your cat has kidney disease. Well, there are ways that you can make life for your cat better and easier at home.
Mm-hmm.
And there are veterinarians and palliative veterinarians and doulas who can help you create an environment so that your cat is more comfortable. It's the same thing as being in hospice, right? It's comfort and care at that point. You know that the cat's not going to live another 5 years.
Yeah.
Cat may not live another month. But what you want to do is, in the time remaining, make sure that the cat's comfortable.
Yep.
Make sure that if you need to adjust the food, if you need to adjust the bedding, and then, decide. Sometimes, sometimes animals will pass while they're in hospice care in your house, but oftentimes that's at some point when you want to talk to the veterinarian and say, it's time. And veterinarians will say better a day early than a day late.
Because the suffering factor?
The suffering factor.
Yeah.
And people feel guilty regardless of what you do, but it's I think many, many more people will say, I wish I had done this sooner. I didn't want my animal to suffer, but I didn't want to lose him. Or her. So that's part of being a pet loss specialist, being a grief educator, and being a companion end of life doula.
Okay. Well, dear listener, I hope that you are engaged in this conversation regarding pet loss. We're going to speak on what a doula is in the segment coming up right after this commercial break.
Stay with us as we continue raising your inner voice with Jay Foss.
Hi, folks. This is Gerard Moynihan of Moynihan Lumber. If you're replacing the windows in your home, please see the Anderson 400 series windows on display at any of our 3 locations in North Reading, Beverly, or Plastown, New Hampshire. The Anderson 400 is attractive, durable, energy efficient, and reasonably priced. Remember, Anderson is the most trusted name in windows. See the Anderson 400 at any of our 3 locations. That's North Reading, Beverly, or Plastown, New Hampshire, or at MoynihanLumber.com.
Moynihan Lumber, we measure up.
If you have any issues, topics, or voices that you think would be great to be heard on this show, please reach out, jay.foss@me.com. If you want to add your voice to the conversation, record a voice memo and email it to me, or tune in live Sunday evenings at 7 p.m.
How's your 401k? I'm Luke Noble of Noble Financial Group. As a certified financial planner, I know you can't plan for everything, but we can prepare you for life's twists and turns. We'll make a plan to help your money last through your retirement years. Our team is dedicated to helping you achieve your financial goals. Let us help. Visit noblefinancialgroupllc.com.
Securities and investment advisory services offered through MML Investor Services. Member SIPC. Noble Financial Group is not an affiliate or subsidiary of MML Investor Services.
Making our corner of the world a little brighter, online and on air. Raising your inner voice with Jay Foss.
And thanks for joining back in to Raising Your Inner Voice. This week on the show, we're talking all about pet loss and also what that means for your life, how you can make your world brighter, how you can make this life brighter, because it's the one life that we have and the one life that we lead. I'm speaking with companion animal end-of-life doula, Niki Vettel. And Niki, what is a doula? Let's go down that rabbit hole.
Right, yeah. So a lot of people may have heard the term doula as a birth doula. The doula role was always women who would help, not as a midwife, but actually provide some emotional support while a woman was giving birth.
Yep.
So the midwife is running around and trying to make sure that, or the doctor trying to make sure that everything physically is going okay. And a doula is there to be the emotional companion.
Okay.
You know, so while the woman is screaming that she wants to kill her husband, the doula
It does
will
typically
reassure-
happen.
Yes, it does. We'll reassure him if he's in the room, and her. I mean, I'm making a joke of it, but you know, there can be a lot of emotional. It's a very emotional time.
Yeah.
And so doulas have traditionally been assisting with birth, and then it sort of transitioned, and so there are human end of life doulas, and now companion animal end of life doulas. And what we do as a doula is a wonderful verb. It's we companion someone, which means, yeah, you know, we walk beside you. You have, for an example, you have just found out that your beloved family dog has tested positive for cancer.
Okay.
And the vet is saying, we really are not sure how long your dog has. You know, the same as with people, a lot of people don't hear anything after they've heard my dog has cancer.
Right.
You know, and that raises lots of issues, financial issues. I mean, how much is this going to cost, and how long is the dog going to live, and what am I going to tell my kids, and all that kind of thing. So a companion animal end of life doula would be there to provide some emotional support, and also connect the person to some resources. All right. For example, it may be that, and this does not displace the veterinarian, but if the owner says, you know what, I had acupuncture. I wonder if acupuncture would work. There is veterinary acupuncture. And the doula might say, well, that's a really great question. Let's ask your vet, and I can do some research and see if there are any veterinary acupuncturists in this area.
Mm-hmm. And
if you want, I can make some preliminary calls and see what that would be about for you and for your dog. Something I like to suggest to people I've worked with, if they are on kind of a timeline with their animal, is to schedule a professional photography session of you and your dog or cat or goldfish or bird, because you want to capture those moments while your animal is still healthy and active. And that can be something very special that you will have. And I actually know some photographers in this area who kind of specialize in that.
Wow.
You know, they'll come in, they're very kind, they're very understanding. We understand that you're doing this because your dog isn't going to be around for that much longer, or you don't know. Where do you like to walk your dog? What are some nice spots? And they'll take some photographs that you can have then. The idea is not to tell people what to do, but it's to serve them so that they can make clearer decisions. And they have a sounding board.
Yep.
So, you know, especially when it comes time for euthanasia and somebody's really struggling, because it can be a very hard question. You know, I'm a compassionate sounding board. You can tell me whatever it is that you're thinking about.
Right.
You know, I'm not going to judge any of that. You know, you've had a dream. You don't know what to make of it. That's okay. Tell me about it. We'll talk about it.
Yeah.
So it's creating a safe space for somebody who's going through this distress, and also guiding them a little bit to think about, well, what would you like to do? So now there are a lot of vets who offer in-home euthanasia, which is a wonderful alternative to bringing your animal to the vet hospital, because
Right.
for so many animals, that is such a stressful, it's stressful anyway. And
Just going to the
just
vet's
going to the
office.
vet. I mean, I have to give my cat gabapentin in order to get her into a carrier. And the joke is I'll always say, well, 2 for you and 1 for mommy, because I'm as stressed. I mean, the very idea that I have a vet visit coming up, and I'm sure she just reads this and she's like, yeah, I know this is going to really suck.
Right.
Sorry for my language.
Yeah,
But,
no,
but
that's
anyway, so for a vet to come to the home
fine.
and be able to put your animal to peace
Yeah.
at home where they are surrounded by what's familiar, the smells are familiar, the sounds are familiar, people's touch is familiar, can be a very lovely way to give your animal a good death. And I know a most extraordinary veterinarian. He's on the West Coast, and he is a end of life veterinarian. This is what he does. And
Wow.
he'll go into a home, and first he wants to hear the story. Tell me the story of how you met. What's your
Yeah.
origin story, right?
Yeah.
With your pet. And he'll listen very carefully. Then he explains to people what's going to happen. What is the procedure? What might they not expect? A lot of times, animals don't close their eyes. So people get upset because their animal's eyes are open and they were like, what? And that's like some people, you have to close their eyes.
Right.
And this,
I think I'm an eyes open type of person.
meaning
When I go,
you think
I'll
your
probably
eyes are
have my
gonna be,
eyes. Yeah,
you
sure.
want to see what's going around.
Yeah,
right?
absolutely. Every last moment that I can capture and take in.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
But I can see where that would be freaky for a lot of people.
Yes. Yeah.
I mean, that's,
Because
yeah.
then there is my animal really dead? I mean, I
Right.
know somebody might, just say, I don't know, was he dead? Did you, so, explaining all of that. And then this vet, and he has been trained in some Buddhist practices, so he has a bit of a ritual, but he will write a poem for every pet that he has put to peace. He's remarkable that way.
Wow.
Yeah. And what a doula will do is talk to, the client about, well, what would you like to do? Do you think you want cremation? Here in Massachusetts, if you want to bury your pet in the
Yeah.
backyard, it's a town by town. There are laws town by town.
Okay.
So you have to check with your town, because actually when an animal is euthanized, it has some chemicals in the body that you don't want actually
Seeping
leaching
into
the ground.
Yeah.
So there's like how deep, or even if you're allowed to. I mean, I don't know the rules about towns, but
Right.
you just need to check.
Okay.
And
Are you there for the actual passing most of the time when?
I can be there if the family wants me to be there. I can
Wow.
be there.
Okay.
If they have children and the children are young
Yeah.
and they don't want to be there, then I can take the kids into another room, and there are some coloring books, so we can tell them about their animal, and I can kind of keep them a little occupied.
Right.
If the parents want to be not have them around, exposed, or they just afraid that they're not going to be able to sit quietly or whatever. And this is even if somebody is going to bring their animal to the veterinarian to be euthanized and they don't think they can do it, I would go to be with their animal.
Yeah.
Or if they want some support while they're there, I can go and be with them.
Right.
The vet will understand.
Yeah. Such a hard topic, and I would imagine that it varies from situation to situation.
Yeah, it's never easy. And there's this sort of subset of euthanasia that's really hard, which is behavioral euthanasia. which is an animal that's healthy but has issues, a
Okay.
biter, aggression.
Oh, okay.
And the pet parent has tried everything in the world, and the animal, I mean, a lot of vets will say it's the animal has had some mental, maybe it's had some brain damage when it was being born, or who knows.
Yeah.
So that's really hard
Yep.
when somebody has to take an animal that is basically healthy but has these dangerous behavioral issues.
Right.
And there are some vets who specialize in that.
Okay.
There are also vets, I mean, you can't just, I don't know, you think that you're going to go away on a trip and you're afraid nobody is going to be able to ever take care of your cat, who's like a real, grumpy cat. So you think, well, maybe I'll just put him down. I mean, vets aren't going to do that.
Right.
So, yeah. So there are a lot of, it's fraud. It's like human death.
Yeah.
There's a lot of issues. The difference is these guys can't tell us how they're feeling.
Right. Yeah.
So, and that's what haunts people.
Yeah.
Is that they don't know. And a lot of times, just like people, a pet will rally, like,
Yeah.
we thought, he wasn't going to make it or she wasn't going to make it. And all of a sudden, they rally.
Yep.
And that's okay. As I, as a doula, might explain to the person, this is part of their saying goodbye. I mean, they haven't just been, their cancer hasn't just disappeared. They're having a good moment.
Yeah.
Enjoy that moment, be with them. I mean, one of the things that I say to people, because they'll get obsessed with the fact that my animal's not going to be here. And I'll say, but your animal is here now.
Mm-hmm.
It's being mindful. It's mindfulness. So enjoy, be present with your pet. And then when the time comes, you won't feel like you didn't give it your all.
Yeah.
So
for anyone just tuning in, this is Raising Your Inner Voice. This evening, we're speaking all about pet loss. And we happen to have an amazing guest on, certified grief educator and companion animal doula, Niki Vettel. And we're speaking all about, I mean, it's so much of this, we're talking about pets, but I can see where it's transferable to people as well, right?
Yes.
Because really, it's loved ones.
Yes. That's a wonderful observation, Jay. It really is. It's loved ones. We want to be compassionate. We want to not make it about us.
Yeah.
And that is
hopefully we want to make it not about us.
Now, right. But a lot of times, very well-meaning people will allow a pet to suffer because they don't want to let go. They can't conceive of their life without this pet. And so the fact that the animal is suffering is something they almost become blind to, and so it's important, if I was working with someone like that, to, gently talk about, well, what is your life going to be like after this, your soul dog has passed?
That's such a hard question.
It is a hard question because, again, with any kind of pet, you end up with a routine, right? With dogs, you're walking them, you get up, you feed them, you play with them, you walk with them. They become part of your routine.
Yeah.
And, the other thing about pets is we actually they're with us 24/7,
right?
Which is a lot more than a lot of the other people in our lives are with us. They sleep with us, many of them. And so it's one of these things where people don't really know who they're going to be without their pet. And because I do a lot of therapy visits with Hermie,
Yeah.
my rock star, guinea pig. We visit Harvard Medical School on a regular basis, and we visited Harvard Law School. He's like getting the most phenomenal education I could possibly afford, but he's requested at these, and we go to Tufts University, and we go to the Tufts Veterinary College, and we do lots of different visits. And anybody who has a therapy animal or a service dog, like a canine, or even a service dog, an assistive dog.
Okay.
When that animal dies,
Yeah.
it's a double blow.
Yep.
In my case, as a therapy handler, I have to share that death with everybody who my guinea pigs have visited with. I mean, guinea pigs are not a long-lived species, so I've gone through the deaths of 3 of my therapy guinea pigs, and it was really hard for the people that we were visiting as well. They mourned also, and for me, it's like part of my identity is kind of wrapped up with being the person who brings the animal to the hospital and stuff. And so it's like, okay, I have to think about who I am now when I'm not in this role.
Yeah.
And for people, we know that there's now, I wish I could remember the name of the law that will honor a police dog that has been killed in action.
Oh.
There's a law that if a police dog is injured in the line of duty, the dog can be rushed to an emergency veterinary hospital. Yeah, that was, I wish I could remember the name of the law, but that was passed about 2 years ago.
Okay.
Because there was a situation with a police officer, I believe, who sadly was killed. His dog was very badly injured, and they sort of didn't know what to do.
Yeah.
But now it's like, you call the ambulance and bring the dog to the emergency room.
Do you know, is that a state law, a federal law?
It's a state law.
It's a state law. Okay.
Law. Anyone who's interested in it can Google Massachusetts state law. Canine dogs go to the ER, something like that. So,
right.
Again, it's all recognition. You know what I mean? Of the importance of that relationship.
Right. It goes back to the relationship aspect.
And the validation that this is a big relationship. One time I was in a pet store and I happened to say, oh, yeah, I'm a pet. I do pet loss counseling. And this man said, I think I must be crazy because I cried more when my cat died than when my mother died. And I said, you're not crazy. You had a different relationship.
Yeah.
A completely different relationship with your cat than with your mother.
Right.
And so what I find myself doing is normalizing these feelings that people have. They're like, I must be crazy. I can't get out of bed in the morning. I'm so sad about my dog.
Yeah.
You're in the acute stage of grief.
Right.
People in the acute stage of grief often can't get out of bed in the morning.
Yeah.
And so you're not crazy. You're not losing your mind. You're grieving.
Yeah.
And, I was going to say the other piece of, there's a lot of other parts of being a doula, but just saying to people, would you like to have a life celebration? Would you like to have some kind of ritual? There are funerals. There are animal chaplains.
Yeah.
And there are some ministers of different denominations who will create a funeral for your pet.
Wow.
If you want.
Yeah.
And that for some people is closure.
Yeah.
It's closure.
It's a way of saying goodbye.
It's a way of saying goodbye and recognizing it, or a life celebration. even with the crematorium that handle pets, there's one here in Massachusetts. There may be more, but one that I know of that allows you to be there in sort of a lovely room as your animal's being cremated. I mean, you're not watching it, but you're there.
Yeah.
As that's happening to your animal. And for some people, they want to do that.
Yeah. Yeah.
So so there's all kinds of, again, these acknowledgments that this is a relationship that merits the same kind of dignity that an important human relationship merits for you.
Right.
Yeah.
So crucial. Dear listener, if you want to chime into the conversation, feel free to give us a call, 617-843-5393, or just type in the comments and we will make sure to get your comment on air. You're listening to Raising Your Inner Voice. This evening, we're speaking with Niki Vettel, who's a companion animal end-of-life doula. And she also has some guinea pigs to do therapy with people.
Yeah.
Tell me more about the therapy side of life.
Hermie, who is my current guinea pig therapist. So there is, again, now animal-assisted therapy has been known for thousands of years. I mean, in Greece, they knew that, animals could help people feel better if they were sick. And Florence Nightingale stated, I wish I could remember the exact quote, that an animal could help a person who was ill feel better. So so this was all sort of anecdotal. Yeah, we know this. And then I think it was in the 50s, there was this one psychologist who his name was Dr. Jingle, which is a great name for a child psychologist. And he noted that he had a little boy he was trying to work with, and the little boy would not open up to him. But one day, Dr. Jingle's dog came in, and the little boy started talking to the dog, and Dr. Jingle was like, "Wait," and started really writing about and thinking about and working with kids and having them interact with animals. And so. And he was, of course, like many people who are pioneers, laughed at by the psychological community.
Yeah.
But now animal-assisted therapy is considered a very, a really, I want to say, strong component of it can be a very strong component of therapy in a lot of different ways. Boston Children's Hospital has a very robust therapy dog program, and they have, I don't know, maybe 20 dogs who are involved with that. And a friend of mine runs that program, and she said people will come in and say, we're bringing our child here, but I want to know now that he or she will be able to get a therapy dog visit, because I know it's going to be very important to them. So this is, sort of emerged as a real field. And there's an organization called Pet Partners.
Okay.
And they are the international pet therapy organization, pretty much the gold standard, because they require a team the handler has to take a course and pass a test, and then you have to be evaluated with your animal.
Oh, yeah.
And if you pass, you have to be reevaluated every 2 years.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. They want to make very sure that both the handler is still up on what they need to know about interacting with people, and that the animal is still, into it.
Yeah, same personality.
Same personality. Especially dogs can get burned out.
Oh, really?
So far, I haven't had any of my guinea pigs. In fact, so my story with Hermie, who was a rescue, was that I didn't think he could be evaluated because he seemed to not be able to have any focus. And then I took him for an evaluation and he aced it. So it was like the parent who doesn't think your kid's good enough, and then they get an 800 on the SATs or something. And but the thing about Pet Partners is they recognize 8 species that can be evaluated and work as a therapy animal. So it's dogs, cats, rabbits, guinea pigs, mini horses, mini pigs, llamas, or alpacas. And domestic, 9 species, domestic rats, and certain birds.
Wow. Yeah. That's much more than I would have figured.
Yeah. Yeah. And depending on where you are, there are, like on the West Coast, there are more people who have therapy llamas, but they're great, or therapy alpacas, actually. Yeah. And they bring them into nursing homes, and they're gentle. They're looking for animals, species that are affiliative, which means that they actually can connect to people.
Yeah. So that's the criteria, is connecting with people.
Right. So not all animals are like, somebody asked me about a chinchilla. Well, or a hedgehog, not so much, they're not, but guinea pigs are actually can get very bonded to people. And what I've learned is, a lot of people are afraid of dogs. You don't realize this because the majority of therapy animals are dogs.
Okay.
So a lot of people are afraid of dogs.
Yeah.
So I bring in a guinea pig, and I will say immodestly, I had the first registered pet therapy guinea pig in Massachusetts.
Really?
Ralphie, who people still remember. And I was visiting a forensic psychiatric facility.
Okay.
Which is a facility where people who are in prisons and who have severe mental health challenges, such that the prison might feel they need some additional help, are moved to a facility like that. And when I tell you that these folks loved the guinea pig visits, they loved them. There was, these sort of tough looking guys, because they were tough looking because that's how they had to survive the prison system.
Right.
They would meet Ralph and go like, "Oh, he's my little buddy. Can I kiss him good night?" It was so beautiful to see people who were so afraid of showing their vulnerability be able to do that with a little animal.
Right.
Who I think they used to feel maybe was a little more vulnerable than they were. So it would bring out, it was
Oh,
great.
that's interesting. I wouldn't have figured that would be the connection.
Yeah. And we had they were wonderful visits, and I visited hospitals. I've always visited adults, and generally, if I'm doing facilities, they're psychiatric facilities, and people go like, "Oh, I thought you'd visit kids." So like, no, adults really love to meet a guinea pig. And I will have to say, so Pet Partners is the international organization. Here in Massachusetts, our community affiliate is called Paws for People.
Okay.
Tufts Paws for People. And if anybody out there has a dog or a cat or a guinea pig or a rabbit or a mini horse or a mini pig or a llama or whatever, that you think might be a good therapy visitor, then I would suggest that I wish I knew they just changed the website. Google Tufts Paws for People.
Okay.
And you will get the information about when the Pet Partners course is offered and when we do evaluations.
Right.
And, I always tell people, I'll bring Hermie, who is my current, pet partner, and people say, "Can I pet him?" And I'm like, "Yeah, he had to pass an exam. And they're like, "What kind of exam?" And I was like, "Well, there's scenarios. There are scenarios." And so and we use volunteers. So people sort of like, there's a scenario where I have to have him sit on 3 different people's laps for like 30 seconds a person to make sure that he's happy.
Right.
Hermie loves it. That was the thing I didn't think he was going to do so well. And then he I couldn't get him off somebody's lap. So what did I know? And then the volunteers pretend to be like little kids and they all rush over, and I'm being evaluated too. How am I managing this? How I'm looking out for the welfare of my animal. So, and I've had this happen where kids will, they'll put their face like
right
in the
in
guinea pig and start yelling. I would say, okay, so he's a very little guy. And basically, so what you want to do is use a gentle voice. He'll hear you, he sees you, but you don't have to shout at him because it's a little bit much for him.
Yeah. Well, and that's true for little people as well.
Yeah.
Dear listener, this evening on Raising Your Inner Voice, we're speaking about pet loss and pets who are therapy practitioners. Yeah, practitioners. So. Okay. We'll be right back after this break.
Want to connect with Jay? Dial in as we continue Raising Your Inner Voice.
Are you worried about the stock market, your 401k, or rising costs? Hi, I'm Luke Noble of Noble Financial Group. As a certified financial planner, I know you can't plan for everything, but our dedicated team of professionals can better prepare you so your money lasts as long as you do. Let us help. Visit NobleFinancialGroupLLC.com.
Securities and investment advisory services offered through MML Investor Services. Member SIPC. Noble Financial Group is not an affiliate or subsidiary of MML Investor Services.
Hi, I'm Paul from Gentilly Brewing, and we've been open for 9 years this March. Celebrate with fresh cans of Allen's Rye Pale Ale, South African Pilsner, Imperial Porter, Divergent IPA, and our own Irish Red. Come on down to 59 Park Street in Beverly to grab some to go. Want to try before you buy? Sample them all in our custom flight board. Our tap room is more than just beer. We have many events planned, including live music, food pop-ups, yoga, and even a book signing. For details, visit GentillyBrewing.com. That's GENTILE Brewing.com.
What does living a better life mean? And what's your process in figuring that out? If you want to join in the conversation live, tune in Sunday evenings at 7 p.m. Eastern. If you want to gather your thoughts first, record a voice memo and email it to jay.foss@me.com, because I would love to have your voice in this conversation. If you think someone else might need a conversation like this one, then let them know to get involved.
Hi, folks. This is Gerard Moynihan of Moynihan Lumber. Professional builders choose Anderson Windows because they are the #1 trusted and recommended window and door brand in the United States. Anderson Windows and patio doors offer beautiful natural wood interiors, low maintenance exteriors, and outstanding energy efficiency. See the complete line of Anderson Windows on display at Moynihan Lumber in Beverly, North Reading, and Plastown, New Hampshire, or visit us at MoynihanLumber.com.
Moynihan Lumber, we measure up.
Not just another talk show. It's time to be heard. Online and on air. Raising Your Inner Voice with Jay Foss.
And the way to get into the conversation, go ahead and shoot us a voice message to 617-843-5393. And we're talking all about pet loss and therapy animals here on Raising Your Inner Voice with my guest, Niki Vettel. And Niki, on the back of one of your business cards, you have a quote from Anatole France. And the quote says, "Until one has loved an animal, a part of one's soul remains unawakened." That's beautiful.
Isn't that lovely?
Yeah. What appealed to you about this quote?
Oh, I think when I first heard it, I thought, yeah, I think that's true. I mean, I think it's a recognition of how animals open something in our hearts.
Yeah.
And they do open our hearts. There's, and then they break our hearts too. There's this other quote, I'll tell you. I saw it as a poster, and it was a drawing of a woman and a dog, and it said, I wanted to spend the rest of my life with you, but I'm honored that you spent your entire life with me. And that's a reframe, right?
Beautiful.
Where you understand that we don't get everything that we want. I mean, I'm always saying to my vet, why don't I love tortoises? They live. I mean, the oldest living tortoise is like on some island off of Madagascar, and I think he's like 192 years old. And it's like it's this great story. He's the oldest living land animal on the planet Earth right now. And I'm like, yeah, I mean, but for most of us, our animals will predecease us.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's weird because we know that going in.
Right.
We know that,
Yeah. At least up here, in the brain, we know that. In the heart, we may not realize that.
Yeah, or we don't want to, accept it. Although I like to think that our inner wisdom, sort of says to us, the presence of this animal in your life is going to be a gift. So for however long you have that gift, is going to be an honor for you. And I do think that there's this little tiny part of us that gets that. I mean, I do know some people who were so devastated by the loss of their pet, they were never able to get another pet.
Okay.
I also know people who, and this was kind of true for me and with Hermie and other friends, it's like they'll lose their pet, and then like this other pet will arrive like on the scene, like you didn't expect it. And people will say, "God, I think my other dog sent this dog to me." Or whatever. In my case with Hermie, I mean, Hermie came into my life 10 days after my husband died. I mean, it was so odd and wonderful, actually. It was a new life, he was a rescue, and actually I had another guinea pig, and then COVID hit. So I had these two little fur balls, plus my cat, who, if she could roll her eyes at the guinea pigs, would have, but that's another story. And a friend of mine who was devastated by the loss of her therapy dog. She's a veterinarian. She's a veterinary tech specialist. And this other dog, same breed, but a different color, came into the clinic with a very serious illness, and she was able to help that dog, and she ended up adopting them. She's convinced that this dog was sent to her by her other dog. And lots of people will say that. I just think that this was some crazy synchronicity, that happened. So
it's funny you use that word. We've been speaking about synchronicities on the program lately. Just the timing of things that seems not so accidental.
Oh, I think that I used to produce the PBS shows with Dr. Wayne Dyer.
Yes.
And I was very honored to do that. I produced all of his PBS specials. And so I got to know Wayne very, very well. And he was a great fan of synchronicity. He would say it's, everybody says, like you're thinking about somebody, you haven't heard from them in a long time, and then all of a sudden they call, and you want to go, ooh, but he was and young Carl Jung believed in synchronicity.
Oh yes, I think he popularized it.
Yes, yeah, and so that happens. And another thing I like to think is like all of our animals are wisdom teachers. So, when an animal is passed, one of the things to do is think, well, what did I learn?
Yeah.
What did I learn from that wisdom teacher? What did he or she or it teach me? Because they're all teachers, right?
That's a great question.
Yeah. So you think about, if any of you are listening and you have had an animal who's passed, you can think about that. What was the legacy? What did that animal want me to learn? And Wayne used to say, people who push your buttons the most are your greatest teachers. And I know people would have things that they could say about their pets.
Yeah.
Things that they push their buttons.
Yeah, absolutely.
And what was it? What was the lesson that you needed to learn from that experience? So, that's a fun way to think about it. And the other thing I just wanted to say, Jay, is that, I'm doing this doula work pro bono. If people want to donate to an animal charity, or I have a charity that I like to suggest if they would like to. But right at this point in my life, I feel like I can do this and I can give back to people. So, so I just wanted to.
That's beautiful. Well, and you're paying it forward. You're listening to that inner wisdom and doing what you can do to pass it on.
Yeah. Had it not been for Ralphie, my first guinea pig, I wouldn't have gone back to get a master's degree in counseling psychology because of him, I started doing these visits into these facilities and I got really interested in it and I decided to do a career change. And what was really interesting was Ralphie died right after I applied for my master's program. And I used to think, you know what? I think his work was done. So we have to ask our pets, what are you trying to teach me here and then in the hereafter? Right?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Niki, this has been such a good conversation. Thank you so much for coming on Raising Your Inner Voice. Dear listener, we turn the program over to you at this point. What are the lessons that you're learning? What are those intimate relationships with animals of all species that you may have? And how are they affecting you? What are the lessons that you're learning from those relationships, whether they're good ones, bad ones? Are you getting unconditionally loved? Are you loving unconditionally? It's that reciprocity back and forth. So we turn it back over to you. Please be kind and gentle with yourself and share that same grace with others.
If you're enjoying this podcast, please help spread the word about raising your inner voice. Join the conversation live. Email jay.foss@me.com to suggest ideas to explore. Also share this podcast with your friends. Let those who need conversations like this have a chance to check it out.
Then let them know to get involved.